So again, for this,
Okay.
awesome. For this brief assignment here, you're going to take notes, Cornell notes on the lecture. And as I talk through it, if you have any questions, please speak up and we'll try to answer them the best we can. All right, so we had you start off in this textbook actually doing a discussion question, interacting and responding to how Jennifer, this young adult teenage, grew up in a Christian home, how she responded to the question of evolution. And today we're going to be looking at, and your reading actually involves looking at pages 178 today in your textbook through pages 185. Okay? 178 through 185. And you're going to be taking notes on those and explaining what you like or dislike about each of these five perspectives or takes on evolution. So when we talk about evolution in science and evolution and religion, there's often some who take the point of view that if you believe in it, then you can't, if you believe in it, then you can't believe in God. Or if you believe in God, you can't believe in evolution. And really, there's a range of responses. There's more than just two options in disagreement between evolution and religion. And the range of these responses have so far been seen in these three broad categories: the young earth creation, the progressive creationism, and evolutionary creationism. And so there's really just more than two that that evolution instead of saying evolution disproves Christianity, or if you're a Christian you can't believe in evolution. There's really a broader range for these beliefs, and it's important for you all to know that just because you believe in evolution doesn't mean that you can't be a Christian, and vice versa. So let's talk through what the term evolution really means. We often find that people, they mix the definitions of evolution without realizing, and in doing so, they're creating confusion. When you try to nail them down with what they are talking about, you'll find that there is a mix of different terms and ideas. And to help distinguish that, the textbook, it distinguishes between five different definitions. Five different definitions when we use evolution. We have those who talk about evolution in terms of microevolution. We have those who, when they talk about evolution, they're talking about it in the pattern of change over time. And we also have some who refer to it as common ancestry. And we sometimes misconstrue this, all of these latter three, and even the fifth one, with what we call the theory of evolution. And of course, the fifth one is evolutionism. And that's a little bit different, but it deals more with the worldview that we try to support with the concept of evolution. All right, so let's break these down a little bit, these five different definitions. All right, so in microevolution, we're basically saying that it's based on two fundamental mechanisms: a differential reproductive success and random mutation. Differential reproductive success and random mutation. And if you look at these two fundamental mechanisms, differential reproductive success, it concerns how some plants and animals are better suited to their environment. There's a good friend of mine. He was a pastor in Tinian, and he began to have severe lung problems. And what they found out is that his body was not equipped for a hot, humid environment, and his lungs literally began to shut down. These are somewhat examples of how who you are can be affected by your environment. And so with these groups, those who are successful, they tend to produce more offspring. And we call this natural selection. Now, the ones that are not suited, they still produce, they can still thrive, but not as well as those that attract more mates and produce more offspring. For example, on this island, we have an invasive species of vine, and it's very well adaptive, and it's starting to take over, right? These are examples of how differential reproductive success can make some plants and animals better suited to certain environments and of course take over. This second fundamental mechanism, though, is random mutation, and this is what really drives the differential reproductive success. Random mutation, it refers to how plants and animals can change due to micro changes. I have to be clear about that. It's micro changes in their genes and in their cells. And what we're referring to specifically is their DNA. So when a mutation occurs, it can be really three things. It can be beneficial, that mutation could be detrimental, where it could be like a cancer or cause you to be more susceptible, like, for example, the COVID-19 virus. Or it could be innocuous. It has no effect on you at all, and it doesn't really affect the differential reproductive success rate. So microevolution refers to the process by which these two mechanisms cause a species to change and adapt over time. Does anyone have any questions about this so far? Okay, so let's talk about some examples of microevolution, what's been witnessed. In 1852, there was this species of bird called the house sparrow, and it was released in North America. And what they found over the last 150 years or so is that these two have diverged into two types of differing sparrows. The sparrows in the north, in the colder climates, they have larger bodies. And the sparrows in the south, they tend to be smaller. Microevolution in just a period of 150 years has caused these two groups of sparrows to change. Another example is the, I don't even know how to pronounce this, the cichlid or cichlid fish in Lake Victoria and Lake Nagubago. Now, back about 4,000 years ago, Lake Victoria and Lake Nagubago were actually one giant lake in Africa. And over the years, sandbars developed to where that these two lakes, they actually separated from each other. And we know this, that they separated about 37,000 years ago. In these two lakes, there evolved 5 new species of the cichlid fish. And we know this because of the DNA. Genetically, they're very similar. But these 5 new species have developed within these two lakes. And the interesting thing about them is that they've developed differing colors and mating rituals. And because of it, they don't interbreed with each other anymore. Now, you can imagine what happens when you take an animal and you don't increase its gene pool. It will tend to be separate, different. It'll be isolated and become something else. And in a way, this is actually how they talk about the different races developing within humanity. Isolation, a smaller gene pool that amplifies certain genetic aspects, and from it a different genetic signature appears that develops with the races, even in humans. Okay, so this is examples of microevolution. All right, now the next of these 5 is, the next one is called pattern of change over time. And this is very simple. It's referring to changes that are seen in a species in the long history, going back billions of years. And so we're considering fossil records. The fossil record validates this. We can see species billions of years back. And these species in the past are generally simpler than they are today, but structurally they were the same. So we're looking at pattern of change over time. So that's the second one. The third one is a theory called common ancestry. And this idea of evolution refers to the idea that all past and present living organisms, we're talking about everything from bacteria, viruses, plants, animals, everything, that they have a common ancestor. And this is linked in a type of family tree. This person's grandparent, great-grandparent, and so on and so forth, all the way back to the point where it was a single organism. Now, we can see examples of this, for example, with wolves and dogs and coyotes. We understand that there was a common ancestor. That of these three species, that we know there was some type of common canine ancestor from them. And similarly, we see this with lions, tigers, and cats. We understand a common ancestry. Now, this is an incomplete model. And the reason it's incomplete is because there's not enough fossils and to show the linkages, and it doesn't necessarily explain either how the species change occurred, but that it did occur. All right. So this is the third one, the common ancestry model. Is everyone good so far? Am I not moving too fast?
Pastor Mike,
Yes.
do you have to take two sets of notes for today, one for this and for the Canvas one?
The one in Canvas, what you're doing is you're writing out your summary of what these are, but then you're also interacting with it. You're telling me what you like about it and what you don't like about it. Today, I'm just introducing you to the topic, and I'm having you do your Cornell notes over this.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Yep. All right. So then we get to the fourth one. And this is the most common that everyone pretty much thinks about when they look at the theory of evolution. This basically states that random mutations and differential reproductive successes not only produce changes in a species in just a few centuries, what we call microevolution, but also produce large changes over millions of years. Now, this was first proposed by Darwin, Charles Darwin, and he had gone out to the Easter Islands and was looking at these differences in finches and the large tortoises on the island and began to formulate. But I want to be clear, he had several years in formulating this theory that he was proposing called evolution. Now, the modern form of the theory, it fuses Darwinian evolution with what we've also learned about genes, DNA, mutations, the fossil record, and differential reproductive success. Okay, so now we're getting to the fifth one, evolutionism. Evolutionism it's a different category. Evolutionism does not necessarily refer to science, but to worldviews, and this is important. Evolutionism refers to how people use evolution to support an atheistic world belief system. Evolutionism is not about science, but it's referring to worldviews. So common claims in evolutionism are like this: that there's no creator, that humans arose purely through natural selection, that humans have no higher purpose, that there's no point. Evolutionism believes that morality is only the result of heredity and environmental influence. They propose that morality is a groupthink, not a higher law. Okay? All right, so that basically deals with the 5